The wise old ancients knew that the greatest power resides in the light. But what is the light? We are going to break it down today on Call Cut with Angélique, and we are going to talk about all things vibration, the higher vibrations, the lower vibrations, envy, jealousy, greed, joy, happiness, love, peace. And we are going to go into the choice that we make to be high vibing or low vibing and how that impacts our lives. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Call Cut with Angélique. I'm Angélique, and let's get right into it. Now, we hear people say all the time, we have to be positive, we have to be positive. And there is a lot of truth in that. Yes, there is toxic positivity, and we'll get to that as well. But there is a lot of truth to the fact that if we want to attract a certain sort of life, a certain sort of energy, a certain sort of beingness, we do have to align with the higher vibrational frequencies. Now, the good news about higher vibrational frequencies is that when they are properly executed, meaning that the body is purified, and we're going to get into all of this, they actually absorb the lower vibrational energies. So let's talk about what these lower vibrational energies are, how we are in it, how we can get out of it, and how the call cut method can help us do this. If you look around right now, everywhere you go, it seems like the prevalent consciousness is competition, comparison, anger, violence, greed, envy, jealousy. All of these negative energies that really do keep us trapped. And the reason they keep us trapped is they do not allow us to see and perceive reality as we truly are. These are consciousness programs that have been put into our minds through distraction, through movies, through television, through music, through politics, through divide and conquer narratives. There's all different places where these things have come at us. Childhood traumas, stories that have been inherited and passed down through generations. They started out as wisdom, but they ended up as fear. And we absorb these things in our childhood, and we don't even realize that through these stories, we are learning a lot about ourselves, but not necessarily from the proper channel. They call it programming for a reason because these are programs that are flooded into us by repetition of stories that then become beliefs. If you repeat something to yourself enough times, you will eventually believe it. Take, for example, a narcissist. A narcissist will have mastered the art of doing this, where they can say things to you over and over and over again until you finally believe it. And I will give you an example. My late father, may he rest in peace, had a picture of him naked with a woman that he was cheating on my mother with. And at the time, my mother found the picture and called him out on it. Now, she's standing there with a picture of my father and saying, "This is you." And he's like, "No, that's not me." And she's like, "But it's you." And he's like, "No, that's not me. I don't know who that is. That's not me in the picture." And it was very clearly him. But he maintained that it was not him. So much so that at some point she just let it go because she was like, "Am I wrong? Is it a guy that looks like him? Is it really not him? Has he been framed?" Now, this was the 1970s, right? So we're not talking about somebody going in and photoshopping this photo or, doing some sort of AI fuckery. We are talking about the 1970s, like Polaroid photograph that just came out of a camera after it was snapped. So he was absolutely lying. But the point is, if you say something and you repeat it enough, people will believe it. Now, just because you do this doesn't mean that it is always going to be beneficial. If we do these sorts of things in our lower vibrational frequencies and we do it to try to manipulate others, harm others, deceive others, control them, this creates a negative vibration. Okay. And this negative vibration does a couple of different things. And if you understand how energy works, energy moves in a spiral, right? And the interesting thing about a spiral is not just that it goes around and around and around like the labyrinth, but it gains speed and it starts to pull everything on that vibration and on that level into its sphere. So what you will start to notice is when you are somebody who is holding envy, holding jealousy, feeling inadequate, you are starting to bring those energies in toward you because those are the energies that reside on those frequencies. Even something as silly as holding envy for somebody who is dating somebody that you wish that you were dating, or jealousy for a friend that got a promotion and you didn't get the promotion. Silly things, right? Not necessarily the more aggressive or nasty, where we go into gossip and people stabbing you in the back, etc. Even if they're simple things, those frequencies bring you down. They keep you down. And when they keep you down, they start to pull in everything else on that frequency. So you'll start to notice there'll be more people competing with you. You'll start to see more envy. You'll start to see more jealousy. You have to remember that when certain things are happening, it is a reflection. Now, this is super interesting because there are people that will say to me, but Angélique, I don't go out to harm people. And that is actually true. There are people that are legitimately victims of these things without having projected that. But what they do project is usually a victim. Now, I can say this in my own life. Because I was legitimately the victim of a narcissist who was constantly hurting me, I was always bracing for it. Now, if I'm bracing for something, that means that I am convinced that it's going to happen. And if I am convinced that it's going to happen, that means that I'm repeating to myself, this person's going to hurt me. This person's going to hurt me. This person's going to hurt me. Well, inevitably, that will be the self-fulfilling prophecy. And that person will go ahead and execute and perform that hurt on me because I've been meditating in that space. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I wrote about worry being a meditation in the negative space. We have to look at the negative space and we have to look at these vibrations because we do operate out of those places a lot more than we think we do. And if you take global consciousness into consideration, we are talking about having to battle not only what is without, but also what is within. And this is difficult because all projection reflection is what reality is created from. So the more of us that are in these lower vibrational frequencies, the harder it will be for us to come together in peace, love, and compassion because we can't. There's always going to be a prevalent energy that is holding us down, a negativity of frequency. There's a lot of stuff out there, if you follow conspiracy theories about, frequency grids and reversal grids and things that have put on to humanity by the gods, et cetera. And of course, this is all subject to what you believe, what you don't believe, and take what resonates and leave the rest. But when you think about a consciousness programming, it is because human beings collectively are super powerful. When we put our minds to something, we can truly accomplish anything. And if you have that en masse, then you have a truly powerful force for change. If you have a bunch of people that are meditating in a positive way on the same exact outcome, they will create that outcome. And this is important to note because where our vibrations are, where we vibrate is going to determine what reality we create. So if we are on a lower vibrational frequency, we are going to create that frequency. And that's pretty much what's happening now. If you look at the consciousness of the world and you look at people, you will see that we have created a reality where there is violence, where there is lack, where there's poverty, where there's great separation, where there is great divide, where there is competition, comparison, envy, greed, jealousy, and power issues being played out on the world stage and beyond. And where does this come from? Now, I had this fascinating conversation with a friend of mine, and he is this high-level thinker, and he goes into these crazy realms. So bear with me when I tell you this story. But he said that we are mirrored reflections of the gods, right? Of other dimensions or other realities that are playing this out in a higher spiritual realm, let's say the fourth dimension. And we are that in physical form. And so because the gods, and if you look at some of the mythologies, whether it was Greek mythology, Nordic mythology, Sumerian, it doesn't really matter. There was always competition among the gods. There was violence among the gods. There was a lot of bullshit between all of these godlike creatures that were trying to vie for power, who was going to get human worship, who was going to be the most revered, who had the temples, what temples were they, who had power over another, and who was eating another, destroying another, taking another down. If you look at that at a very high level, and then you compare that to the consciousness of humanity at this time, it seems that human beings are going through this same sort of thing where we are in physical form acting out this play of the gods, if you will. And we're continuously doing that at this lower vibrational energy, forgetting one very important thing. And that very important thing is that we ourselves, human beings, have the God spark. We are beings of light. We come here with this incredible power that has been dumbed down. And the dumbing down of our power was done on purpose. And that's because when you take power away from anything, that being, that creature, etc., loses its ability to have autonomy over its own thought. And if something has no autonomy over its own thought, then that thing can be controlled. You can get them to do whatever. It's a survival instinct, right? When we think about beings wanting to survive, every being wants to survive. And if they have no power to do so, they are going to look to something more powerful or outside of themselves in order to lift themselves up or to get themselves out. You think about this when people worship gods, when people worship different sorts of deities. They do so because they want to gain favor. And if you gain favor from those deities, then you acquire power. The incredible paradox of all of this is that everything is created in our minds. So even the idea that there is something outside of ourselves to worship is created in our minds. It's a belief. It's something that we have actually created collectively through religion that takes us in this place where we give our power over. And when we give our power over, we diminish our vibratory level. We actually start to vibrate slowly. Think of it as the more power you put into an engine, right? And an engine's, right? The cylinders are firing and it's rotating. The more horsepower you have, the faster it goes. The less horsepower you have, the revolutions per minute, RPM, is less. And so the car cannot go as fast if it has less horsepower. Well, I think of it like us. Like if we have less willpower, right, we can't vibrate as quickly as if we have more willpower. And if you think of yourself like a race car, right? And I say, okay, Angélique, am I a Ferrari or am I, a Pinto? Like what kind of machine am I? Where do I vibrate? Right? Can I get up to 250 revolutions per minute or do I tap out at 100? So there's a lot of this willpower that comes into play when we are trying to figure out how we move to the next level, and especially with the next vibratory level, because to get to those higher levels, we have to consciously choose to be positive. I want to be clear about positivity because we don't want to talk about this kind of toxic positivity where people are overly performing a positive action or optimism when inside they're really suffering or they're being abused or something terrible is happening to them, right? That is not how this works. As a matter of fact, friends, toxic positivity is on the negative end of the polarity spectrum because it's actually holding you down. You're not truly feeling the optimism. You're using it as a mask. It's the same thing as false light, people who are negative, manipulative, conniving, cunning, etc., but they're putting out this outward performance of I am a light being, I am somebody who's here to save you, I am what amounts to an unhealed healer. This is important, and this is an important distinction because we need to not take these things in just at face value. We have to pull it in through our intuition. And this is where we get wisdom. And I've said this a lot. Wisdom is the marriage of intellect and intuition, right? And the minute those two come together, that's where you get wisdom because you really kind of understand why things are happening the way that they're happening. And you can only do that through the filter of your own intuition. So toxic positivity is not what we're talking about when we talk about truly changing the story to be positive. We're talking about looking at a narrative, whatever narrative that is, instantly chopping it up, calling cut, and saying, what positive reframe can I throw on this? Now, this is no different than cognitive behavioral therapy, right? We take something, then we take a belief and we change that belief and we change it for the positive. But what the call cut method does is the call cut method makes you go a little bit deeper. First, we become aware of whatever story we're telling ourselves that's keeping us in this lower vibrational energy. And once we have the awareness, now we can sit down and we can rewrite the story. Because if we're not aware that we're doing something, it's really hard to pinpoint what is actually happening. And awareness is going within and really taking account of all of your thoughts. Now, we have two million thoughts a day. I mean, we think all day long. Things are firing, our synapses are firing, or maybe not for some of us, but firing and firing all day long. And we have to take into consideration that the brain is taking in a lot of information. It's taking in information around us. It's stuck in the past. It's worrying about the future. It's very rarely in the present. So when we call cut on ourselves, it's bringing ourselves right back to baseline and saying, why did I have that thought? Why did I have that reaction? Why is that bothering me? And that's the exploration process, because we have to explore why those things are bothering us before we can get in there and do a whole full rewrite. If we don't know what's bothering us, we have no idea how we're going to fix it. And we may think we know what's bothering us, but until we really call cut on all of our negativity and all of our bias and all of our judgments, we're not actually going to get to the root of it. Because the root of it is often not what we want to see within ourselves. We don't want to admit that we have jealousies, we have envies, we have greeds, we have avarice. We don't want to look at the bad. We only want to look at the good. And that's not a bad thing. It's not awful to look at yourself and want to find the good. However, if we don't acknowledge where we may have harmed other people, harmed ourselves, or our mentality is not really in alignment with a higher vibration, we get stuck in those lower vibrational energies. And the more we're stuck in those lower frequencies, we can't rise up to our highest potential. So what we need to do when we're doing this exploration work is really be courageous. Be courageous. Go in there, look at yourself, look in the mirror and say, okay, I do this because A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And we start to make notes of it and we start to figure it out. And every time that thing happens, we call cut and we say, okay, stop. Do we need to react to this? Do we need to have this response? Can we think of something better? Can we think of something more effective? Can we think of something more empowering? And this is where the willpower comes in, right? Am I going to go into this with 100 horsepower and tap out, or I'm going to go into this with 250 willpower and be like, all right, I can change this. I could win this race against my own mind. I'm the driver. I don't need to hand the keys over to anybody else. I'm going to go fully forward at the speed that I determine, because I'm not afraid to look at myself for who I really am. And that is a complex, multifaceted being that has a range of emotion. Now, getting back to frequency, the reason we want to make sure that we are always at a higher vibrational frequency is that higher vibrations will always absorb lower vibrations. And in order for us to create peace on earth in the way that many of us wish and many of us meditate on and dream about, if you will, that is the goal. To transmute and alchemize those energies so that all of those negative frequencies have no choice but to get absorbed into these higher level frequencies. So all the crap that we've been dealing with and all this vomitous stuff can come up to be healed. When we heal ourselves, we heal the world. And people don't believe that's true, but that is 1,000% true. And that's because of the ripple effect, and everything happens in the quantum field. So it's not just this spot. It's going across the space-time continuum, and it's changing. You can change the past and the present simply by changing the script. You can alter the future from the present by changing the script. But if you are not fully in the present and you don't have the pen, you can't change that script. The pen is truly mightier than the sword. We have been taught that we have to fight for everything. We have to fight our way out of this reality. No, friends, we write our way out of this reality. We write the empowering story of humanity that overcame adversity, overcame our own greed, avarice, power, hungry, control, our jealousies, our envies. We transmuted the petty squabbles of the gods, and we lifted ourselves to these higher vibrational energies that took us out. Now, for some people, this is way, way woo, and it's a little bit out there. But if you think about it in the mundane, it has to happen on this mundane level every day. It has to happen at work. It has to happen at home. The call cut method is designed to rewrite the story in real time. All these little things that you do The anger that you've held onto for years at a sibling, call cut on the anger. Let it go. Okay. Ask yourself, is this a hill that I really want to die on? What outcome do I get from this? If I get into a fight with this person, do I actually feel great, or do I feel great for a minute and then I feel like crap after? If I go down this road again, am I going to have 6 months not talking to my sibling? Am I going to have an issue with this person? Am I not going to forgive them? Even if they do the same thing to me over and over again? You cannot be in control of what another person does, friends. You could only be in control of you. And your job is to raise the frequency, raise your vibration, move yourself from the lower vibrational energies and start to rise into joy, compassion, empathy, love, kindness, and freely offer those things as an alternate rewrite to the script that has been competition, comparison, jealousy, envy, greed, violence, and avarice for millennia. That's how incredibly powerful we actually are. We are so powerful that if all of us decided, hey, we're just going to rewrite this story, we don't like the human story that has genocide and murder and, child trafficking and all this other stuff, everything the dark web is made of. We don't need to get into that. We can elevate out of it by writing ourselves out of it. We can write ourselves a completely different story. We can start creating worlds from our minds that are in these beautiful, utopic sort of places. And we can make that reality. The heaven on earth is an actual thing, but it starts in our minds. And we have to get control of the heart mind connection before we're able to do that. And many of us don't know how to do that. We've never been taught how to do that. There are many, many books that actually will walk you through this. A great book, The Light Shall Set You Free, by Dr. Norma J. Milanovich and Dr. Shirley D. McCune. If you really want to dig deep into this idea, I definitely suggest getting a copy. It's super interesting. And they really kind of break it down for you so you understand the 9 bodies. You understand how this machine works. You understand the mind, body, spirit connection. You understand the vibrations and why we have to elevate our thinking. We have to elevate our heart center in order for us to absorb those lower vibrational energies. And that is the beauty of higher vibration. The fact that it absorbs lower vibration means that we can just rise our way out of whatever dramas and traumas that have been inflicted upon us by not choosing to perpetuate the story. And as we've said a million times over, a story is just that. It's a story. Right now, you can choose if you want to continue living it. If I have a story that says every friend that I meet betrays me, and that's my story, and I go out into the world and I start attracting those friends because I have cast them in the role through my belief system. I wrote the story. I'm now the writer, director, producer of this film called Angélique's Life, and out I go. And lo and behold, there are a bunch of actors that are more than willing to play the part of person who betrays Angélique, which then fulfills my script that I wrote, and I get to say, oh, woe was me. Oh no, look what happened to Angélique. This is terrible. And the whole thing perpetuates. And then that's how I get a loop, right? And I start to get on this hamster wheel of, oh my God, everybody that I meet does this to me. Everybody that I meet does this to me. And the actors line up. Okay, everybody that we meet is going to do this to her. She can't trust anybody. Okay, guys, that's your role. That's your role. That's your role. Ready? And action. So once we understand that, we can say, holy crap, cut. This belief system's no longer serving me, this idea that everybody betrays me. Now, where does this come from? This particular wheel comes from childhood because my father betrayed me. My family betrayed me, right? My extended family betrayed me. So do I feel justified in that storyline? Yes. Does that storyline serve me? No. Can both things be true? Yes. Can it be true that you were harmed by this storyline and so you're justified in this feeling? Absolutely. But can it also be true that you have the ultimate power to change that story and become triumphant? Yes. You get to write the superhero version of your story. The story where guy/girl goes out into the world and meets a bunch of people who exceed their expectations and become these incredible friends and family to them. Yes, you get to write that story. And that story will manifest just as the other story will manifest. And that is how we ultimately change the world, one thought at a time, but we need to do the work to do that. We need to be willing to say, I can't look at everything in my life from the negative. And if any of you have got my book, Keep Shining, A Journey from Dark to Light, I share a lot of my story, and I am very open with things that happened to me in my life that should have taken me down, that should have put me on the track for permanent victimhood, that should have shied me away from doing anything that I'm doing now in my life. But to the contrary, I decided, no, I'm going to write the story that I want to live. I'm going to figure out what is in my best interest and what is for my highest and best self, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring people into my life who are an energetic match. I am going to work on projects with people that I love. I am going to create art in this world that will inspire, inform, entertain, and heal. And that is what I want to do. That's my mission, my journey. And I have every power to do that if I keep my mind focused on that higher level vibration of service to others and really going into that shadow work and finding all of those little negative feedback loops and storylines and cutting them and just rewriting the script and consistently rewriting that script, consistently coming back to the table and saying, nope, that's not working out for me. What is a better, more empowering way to look at this situation? What is a better, more empowering way to move forward? And doing it from a place where we're not covering or masking the negative feelings or the feelings that we have, but we're moving through them. We're allowing the anger and the sadness to help us find all the little storylines that we need to dig up in this treasure trove in the dark cave within. And that's what emotion does, right? Emotion allows us to get in there and go look at stuff that really doesn't feel good. When we're angry, when we're sad, that's exploration. The sadness helps us go within and really kind of figure out, why do I feel like this? When we're mad, that's action. That moves us forward. Sometimes anger will push you to move forward and really go for something because you've been so frustrated or something triggered you and then finally put you into action. Fear. Fear is also incredibly important. No, we don't like to have it ruling our lives. And so irrational fear is something that we do have to call cut on and we have to look at and we have to really work on to change the story around. But fear itself keeps you safe in certain situations in a world that's constantly trying to eat you. So you do have to use these emotions and you have to alchemize them and you have to move through and you have to understand the power of the word. And I actually did an entire other podcast on this and you should check it out because words have power. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you say about other people. Remember, if you have a heart filled with envy and jealousy, and I said this at the top, you will bring a lot of that into yourself and you will start to bring people who do those actions to you. And you will start to bring people in that enact those out with you. So the better thing to do is to stop yourself, heal yourself, call cut on all of these negative storylines and really get into the nitty-gritty so you can raise your vibration to the loving, compassionate, empathetic human that you are meant to be. Life isn't easy for any of us, but we have far more power than we believe we do. So remember, friends, when you're out there in the world, take that sacred pause. Stop the rerun, call cut, and move yourself into the highest and best timeline. Thank you so much for joining me on Call Cut with Angélique. New episodes drop every Friday. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, folks, no matter what life gives you, you must always keep shining.